Hi guys, welcome to the Classicist Corner. I'm Kat, and this week, considering it's Easter, I thought I'd talk about the Monty Python 1979 film The Life of Brian. I'm going to be talking about how the Romans are depicted in the film, and then going on from that, how Brian is seen as a messiah figure within the film. So first off, at least aesthetically, the Romans are initially portrayed as the very old sword and sandals, classic Hollywood type of Romans. So if you consider John Cleese as a Roman in this sort of getup, and then the Ben-Hur type Roman over here, then you can see at least aesthetically they are very similar. But the important thing with the Romans in Ben-Hur, especially with the introduction of sort of the early Christianity figures, the Romans are kind of seen as antagonistic. They are the sinful, overindulgent masses, while Christianity comes in and changes things. But the Romans in Life of Brian, even adding in all of the Python's silliness with their representations, are more the put-upon bureaucratic authority than the straight-out antagonists. They are the angry policeman, they are the ineffectual politician, they are the angry Latin teacher who is annoyed that you haven't done your grammar homework properly, which, familiar with that one, by the way. Anyway, so they are more ineffectual than outright antagonistic. The People's Front of Judea and the Judean People's Front kind of want them out because they are the general authority, not interfering authority, more than they are an actual threat. So, and actually the Pythons were making quite an interesting political point, considering this film was made in the 70s, that the authority actually does some good, as you can see in the what the Romans have actually ever done for us scene. So, you know, piping, sewage, wine, roads, that's education, that sort of thing. So the authority can do some good, but also that the opposition is often way too fractured to actually put up any sort of good front against the authority, and they often and the opposition can actually squabble over petty things rather than focusing on their actual enemy. So that's an interesting point. But moreover, that the Romans don't really do much. Brian's run-in with the Romans are more incidental and stuff he does. They are the general authority front rather than the actual threat to him. They don't really care unless he directly bugs them. And it's also actually interesting that Brian still gets into scuffles with the Romans only when he starts finding out that he might be half Roman. He doesn't really mind living in the Roman society, or at least gets on in the Roman society until he finds out he's half Roman, and then he kind of has this urge to rebel. So that's quite interesting. But then talking about the depiction of the Romans further, this sort of bureaucratic put upon, which by the way they are put upon, you can see here in the film the Romans are about as happy to be in Judea as the Judean people are about as happy that the Romans are there. So lots of John Cleese rolling his eyes. But moreover on that, you can kind of see the Romans don't really do much, and when it comes to the Romans not doing much, it's quite interesting because in the Bible the Romans are similarly, yes, antagonistic in the way of the general authority and ruling class, but they're not that antagonistic, and which is quite interesting and quite obvious considering that the Bible was written by Romans, Christian Romans, but still Romans. And getting onto that more religious side, when it comes to the depiction of Brian as a messiah figure, the Pythons got into quite a lot of trouble with that as sort of, oh, he's not the Messiah, he's a very naughty boy stuff, because the film was actually banned in a lot of countries because people thought that their depiction of Jesus was heresy, was actually really disrespectful, and it got banned in a lot of countries and is still banned in quite a few countries. But actually, their depiction of Jesus, sort of, he is seen kind of off in the distance or mentioned, only mentioned is actually very similar to, again, old Hollywood films like Ben-Hur or The Robe, where Jesus isn't really directly seen. And in that way, the depiction is very both old cinema but also fairly respectful. It's Brian they take the mick out of, and Brian and the people who flock around Brian and claim him as this new Messiah figure. And actually that's quite an interesting concept, because during the sort of 1st century, sort of when Christianity popped up as a major religion, there was a thing in Rome and Roman provinces called mystery cults, where random little religions would pop up and people would start following them, and it would they'd build up and up and up, or some would go away and something. So the depiction of people who are just begging for new messiahs and just be like, oh, this is a thing, that happened. Maybe not quite as sillily as the film depicts it, but that was a phenomenon in the Roman Empire. So there's classical precedents for that. But more importantly, Brian is so not the Messiah, and it's really shown that in his actions, in contrast to a more Christ-like figure. Obviously he says he's not the Messiah, he knows that full well, but the people who follow him still cling on to certain images, iconography, and that's how mystery cults started. But comparing Brian to Jesus, it is shown very quickly that in fact he is not the Messiah, and he is in fact a very naughty boy, because Brian doesn't really care about anyone else. He cares about making a scene and making him seem like something, joining different religious groups because it makes him seem a certain way. Brian is very selfish, and the run-ins he has with the Romans are nearly entirely his own fault and weird accidents, rather than them being directly antagonistic. So it sort of shows him to be quite a selfish person, which this is a bit weird to talk about because obviously it's got a load of the Python silliness in there, it's got a little of randomness. That's not really randomness because it's a really political satire, but there's a lot mixed in there. And when it comes to Brian and Roman, low time accidental guy having a run-in with the cops, rather than, oh, a messiah figure being declaimed or being objected against by the Romans. So that's quite an interesting thing. This video is kind of all over the place, but what can you do when it's a Pythons film you're talking about? Oh well. Okay, I will see you guys next week. Have a happy Easter if you're celebrating, and yeah, please, if you like this video, please like, share and subscribe.